everybody, welcome back to the Show and Tell Show with Penetang Centennial Museum and us over here at Huronia Museum. Hi everybody, good to see you again.
Hi.
So last week we had thrown out that challenge of medical stuff from the medical community, medical care. So we threw out that challenge. That means our curator, Genevieve Carter, is going to go first. What do we have, Jen?
Okay, I have something that is a little late, but it is still topical. I have some newspaper clippings and photographs from the Midland Free Press from 1953 and 1955. Now, the early 20th century, especially the period between 1927 and 1953, saw successive waves of the polio pandemic in Canada. And the biggest one probably occurred about 1953, and Midland area was not immune. I have a newspaper clipping from the 1953, September 1953, so just after the long weekend of that year, and I will show it to you. You'll see the whole page, but down at the very bottom, there's a newspaper article that talks about the fourth victim on Denalda Street was hit in 2 weeks. The fourth victim in 2 weeks had contracted polio, and that was actually 3-year-old David Onley. He became later on, much later on, he became Ontario's lieutenant governor. He was struck by polio, and he had, out of the 4 cases on that one street, he had probably the most severe case. It paralyzed his legs and his arms. He did manage to use them much later on with extensive physiotherapy, but he had really severely contracted that. By that year, there were about 9,000 cases of polio in Canada with about 500 deaths. It was a really, really severe pandemic. Fortunately, 2 years later, a vaccine was developed by Jonas Salk, and we have some photographs from the Midland Free Press. The first one here is a group of happy children before they have actually gone in to get their vaccines. They're over at the armory, and then later on we've got another photo. These are all from May 1955, and this is a little fella named Gerald Karch. There he is, very interested, and he's getting his polio vaccine. So that's my medical stuff.
Wow, very topical. As you know, this week is like 1 year from our first case of COVID coming to Canada. So
wow. I remember getting my vaccine.
Oh,
yeah. Polio vaccine,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I have my scars right up here. Everybody got a little scar from it. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I remember seeing those on adults.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What have you got, Penetang Centennial Medical?
Well, what we have is related to a facility that is no longer in operation here and is dearly missed by the community, and people still lament over the loss of it. So Nicole, what have you got?
So what I do have here is, this is sort of a commemorative pamphlet about the Penetang General Hospital, and it was put out in 1971 for the 60th anniversary. And on the front here, we have a picture of the original hospital, which was on Harriet Street. It was actually, originally it was First Brooks' home. He was a lumber baron in our town. And he originally had offered the sale of this home to a bunch of businessmen for them to have a club. And when these businessmen got together, one of the businessmen said, "What do we need a club for? We can get together at each other's house. Let's build a hospital." Wow. Because before the hospital, they had a hospital in Penetang, they shared a hospital with Midland in the Marine Hospital in Sunnydale. And we had a major outbreak of diphtheria happening in around 1910, and because of that, they felt it was really important to have a hospital right in town. And so that was built in 1911, and then the Penetang Hospital on Jeffrey Street was built in 1954, because obviously this building very much, they outgrew this space very quickly. The interesting thing about this pamphlet is not only does it give you a history, it gives you a bit of a sense of social history of the time too, which is always interesting and fascinating to hear more about the stories of the people in 1971 that were interviewing people that were their original nurses from the beginning. And there's one really neat little story here. It's called Sweet Memories of Happy Days. And in 1942, the hospital was taken over by the Grey Sisters of the Immaculate Conception. And this was one of the nuns who was a nurse and telling sort of a typical, like her experience when she first came to Penetanguishene and when she first started working for the hospital, which is always, it's just so interesting to get these firsthand accounts of the time. It starts off, the first thing is she detrained from K&P. And what is K&P? That was a familiar term that the CNR train that came into Penetanguishene was called back then, called the kick and push. You didn't know that. So it's those little things that you learn when you get these kind of documents. And it goes through some of the, you know, the original staff, medical staff that was there and some of their financial information. But then there's also, you know, some old, you know, pictures. Sorry. You know, some of these great old photographs. And these are, I mean, a lot of these are from 1971. But even now, that's going back quite a few years of the different departments they had. And it had listed all of the patients that were admitted in 1970, the number of newborns. 174 newborns were born in Penetanguishene Hospital in 1970. And I would love, I mean, I think some of these photographs we actually have in our collection, the original ones, but some of them we don't. And it's just a really great little archival piece that we have that tells a little bit of the history of PGH. And as you know, it was it did amalgamate with the Midland Hospital, and then eventually did close down. So
I love the nurses' caps.
yes.
Yeah.
The uniform they used to have, and we do have some of the nurses' caps from some of the nurses that were there, but I thought this was kind of an interesting little document.
Yeah.
Neat. Awesome. Okay, so that is like from our medical side of our collection. What's our challenge for next week there, Penetanguishene Centennial Museum?
Well, we are going to investigate the elements. So we've got fire, air, wind. No, not fire, wind. I'm getting all mixed up. One of those. You're going to pick one of those.
Okay,
And we'll see what you come up with.
Okay.
Okay,
Water,
we can do
fire, air, and earth.
that. Ah, got it.
Got it.
There we go.
And it'll be interesting to see if we use the same element.
Yeah, that'd be neat to see.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll have to chat about that, Jen, see what we've got in the back.
Okay, all right.
Thanks for joining us, and we'd really like to invite, I know we've got a lot of people who are actually following us and look forward to these every week. We've been getting some great feedback. So if you have something you'd like to see, like you'd like to suggest a category, maybe something that starts with the letter G, I don't know, whatever it is, throw us out a challenge. We'd love to hear it. We'll take in your challenges over the next few weeks, and you can email us. We'll throw up the email addresses on these posts, and you can either email Penetanguishene Centennial Museum or Huroney Museum, and let's let the community challenge us a little bit. Okay, ladies? All right.
Wonderful.
Sounds
idea.
good.
Thanks for joining us. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next
Bye.
Wednesday.
Bye.